Good morning, everyone. I woke up this morning fully intending to do a more condensed, shorter video on the second amended complaint from Jen Abel last night to just summarise the differences and the new information we have. But my attention was quickly taken up with another filing for sanctions from Blake Lively, this time against Melissa Nathan. Honestly, this woman needs some help. Okay, so let's read that, and I'll do a video later that I planned on Jen Abel second amended. Miss Lively respectfully moves the court to sanction defendant Melissa Nathan pursuant to Rule 37 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure for failure to comply with the court's August 27th, 2025 order compelling the correction and production of certain materials, including but not limited to documents bearing improper redactions. In her document productions subject to the order, Ms. Nathan produced documents bearing revised text box redactions, which exposed over 35 documents bearing impermissibly broad, non-responsive redactions. We have a footnote. Ms. Nathan produced certain documents in response to Ms. Lively's omnibus motion to compel, but before the order, as previewed in the opposition to Miss Lively's motion to compel filed by the Wayfarer defendants on August 11th. For the purposes of this motion, Miss Lively refers to those documents and others produced after the order as subject to the order. A compendium of the challenged documents subject to the order is affixed hereto as Exhibit A, and Exhibit A is currently sealed. Ms. Nathan traded one deficiency for another and in doing so failed to address her improper redactions, as the court directed. The court should enter an order directing Ms. Nathan to produce unredacted copies of the challenged documents and to reimburse Ms. Lively for all reasonable attorney's fees and costs incurred by Ms. Nathan's failure to comply with the order. Section 4A of the Joint Stipulation on the Protocol for Discovery of Electronically Stored Information and Hard-Copied Documents outlines the circumstances under which a party in the above-captioned action may apply redactions to produced documents. As set forth in Section 4.4a, where a document contains material that is 1. Not relevant per Federal Rules of Evidence 401, or 2. Includes a mix of responsive and non-responsive material, the producing party may redact the non-responsive material and produce the responsive content. The ESI stipulation further specifies how redactions should appear, instructing that any non-responsive redactions should make clear the reason for the redaction used in the text box redactions, and that personally identifiable information shall be redacted with a black box. In the order, the court directed Miss Nathan to correct her improper redactions under the ESI stipulation, including by modifying redactions in prior productions to replace black box redactions with text box redactions, indicating the reason for the redaction. Okay. We have a footnote. The order also compelled the production of Miss Nathan's phone records and materials responsive to Miss Lively's request for production, seeking inter alia communications with media outlets, social media accounts, and concerning the digital campaign through February 18th. On August 14th, 2025, in advance of the order but in response to the motion to compel, Ms. Nathan reproduced production volumes 2 and 4, which included documents previously redacted with black box redactions, with documents bearing new text box redactions. Okay, we have another footnote. References to Bender Declaration refer to the declaration of Kristen E. Bender in support of plaintiff's motion for sanctions against defendant Nathan, dated October 31st, filed contemporaneously herewith. Still, 39 of the documents reproduced with NR redactions bear improperly overbroad redactions and therefore fail to comply with the ESI stipulation and the order. Many documents Ms. Nathan produced in production volumes 6, 7, and 8 suffer from the same and other deficiencies. We have a long footnote here. In addition to violating the order by virtue of bearing overbroad redactions that challenged documents in Ms. Nathan's production volumes 6, 7, and 8 produced August 23rd, September 8th, and September 12th, respectively, violate the court's mandate that Ms. Nathan, 1, produce her phone records from May 1st, 2024 onward, 2, produce responsive documents post-dated December 20th, 2024 through February 18th, 2025, including but by not limited to communications with media outlets. Redacted attachment to, and they've redacted it. And then E, redacted text messages with, and they've redacted that. F, redacted text messages with, and they've redacted that. G, redacted communications regarding the redacted. H, redacted text messages with redacted. And there's a bunch of other stuff then redacted. That was incredibly helpful. For instance, in some cases, it was apparent that Ms. Nathan's non-responsive redactions were overbroad because other parties or third parties produced unredacted versions of the same documents that revealed plainly relevant and responsive materials obscured by Ms. Nathan's redactions. Compare Exhibit I at 7, and it's redacted, with Exhibit J, which is also redacted. Compare Exhibit K, which is redacted, with Exhibit L, which is redacted, and compare Exhibit M, which is redacted, with Exhibit N, which is redacted. In other cases, Ms. Nathan applied non-responsive redactions so broadly that the underlying document was essentially unreadable. A reality Ms. Nathan acknowledged herself during her depositions. I mean, this is a bit rich coming from Blake Lively, who did, I can't remember what it was, but she filed a document and it just looked like a barcode. Okay. There's a footnote, but it's entirely redacted, so can't look at that. On September 24th, 2025, in advance of Ms. Nathan's deposition, counsel for Ms. Lively conferred with counsel for the Wayfarer defendants regarding Ms. Nathan's improper non-responsive redactions, among other deficiencies. Counsel for the Wayfarer defendants advised that they were not prepared to discuss Ms. Nathan's redactions at the time of the parties' conferral. Having heard nothing from counsel for the Wayfarer defendants on October 16th, counsel for Ms. Lively followed up to request confirmation that Ms. Nathan would reproduce the flagged documents without non-responsive redactions. Counsel for the Wayfarer defendants did not respond. Undersigned counsel attempted to confer once more on October the 22nd. On October 23rd, counsel for the Wayfarer defendants summarily stated that Ms. Lively's contentions were untimely and advised that they would not revise their redactions. We have a footnote. On October 27th, counsel for Ms. Lively requested confirmation from counsel for the Wayfarer defendants that Ms. Nathan would reproduce an additional document bearing an overly broad, non-responsive redactions in Ms. Nathan's August 14th, 2025 reproduction. Counsel for Wayfarer Defendants has not responded. The court should exercise its broad discretion to sanction Miss Nathan pursuant to Rule 37B2A for failing to address her improper redactions as required by the order. The discovery provisions of Federal Rules of Civil Procedure are designed to achieve disclosure of all the evidence relevant to the merits of a controversy. And when a party seeks to frustrate this design by disobeying discovery orders, thereby preventing disclosure of facts essential to an adjudication on the merits, severe sanctions are appropriate. Miss Nathan has sought to do just that, offering no explanation for her violation of the order and the ESI stipulation. She is confirmed to have redacted as non-responsive material regarding the digital campaign, for example, and they put a Bates number. And she does not dispute that the same issues plague other material that exclusively she has produced and redacted as non-responsive. If Miss Nathan's non-compliance stands, she will have successfully deprived Miss Lively of relevant and responsive material necessary for Miss Lively to prosecute her claims, and needlessly wasted this court's time and resources. The court should not reward Miss Nathan for her own misconduct. Accordingly, the court should order Miss Nathan to reproduce the challenged documents without redactions within a week of the court's order and reimburse Miss Lively for reasonable attorney's fees and expenses incurred by Miss Nathan's failure to comply with the order, including but not limited to those associated with the instant motion and correspondence regarding Miss Nathan's discovery deficiencies. So, respectfully submitted, Gottlieb. Okay, well, I mean, that we need obviously more context, but that seems more reasonable than the spoliation sanctions request, the freedom statement sanction request, and definitely far more reasonable than yesterday's little gem. I don't know what she was thinking with that. I'm still annoyed. But anyway, I've already done my rant on that. If Melissa Nathan is not complying with a court order to produce documents in a specific format, then Lively might have a point with this one. But we need to know a little bit more information. So, but there we go. So that's the latest request for sanctions. I will probably be back on Monday with another request for sanctions at this rate. Have a good weekend.